What you are seeing right now is not a movie scene. It's not a simulation. It's not something happening far away. This is happening inside the United States. Millions of people are taking to the streets. Not hundreds, not thousands, but millions. Across cities, across states, across the entire country. And at first glance, it might look like another protest. Something temporary, something that will fade away in a few days. But it's not. Because what's happening right now is not about just politics. It's not just about one policy or one decision. This is something deeper. Something that has been building up for a long time. And now it's starting to spill out. In just the last 48 hours, one of the largest protest movements in modern American history has taken place. Over 8 million people, more than 3,000 cities, movements known as No Kings. And when numbers reach that level, you are no longer looking at a random event. You are looking at a signal that something inside the system is under pressure. Because protests like this don't just appear out of nowhere. They don't happen because of one headline. They don't happen just because one bad decision. They happen when pressure builds over time. Slowly, quietly, almost invisibly, until one day it doesn't stay quiet anymore. So, the real question isn't just what's happening. The real question is why now? Because none of these issues are new. Political tensions, that's been there for years. Economic pressure, also not new. Global conflict, definitely not new. So, why did it explode now? Because something changed, not necessarily in the system itself, but how people experience it. Over the past few years, people have been adapting, adjusting to higher costs, adjusting to uncertainty, adjusting to constant tension, but adaptation has a limit. And once that limit is reached, it turns into something else. Frustration. And when frustration builds long enough, it doesn't stay internal. It becomes visible. It becomes collective. And eventually, it becomes action. If you ask different people about this protest, why they are here, you'll get different answers. Some will talk about wars, some will talk about government power, some will talk about rights and policies. But if you zoom out, you start to see something more important. Because this isn't just one issue. This is a stack of issues, layered on the top of each other, reinforcing each other. First, there is a global situation. Tensions involving Iran, military positioning, the possibilities of escalation. For many people, it feels like the country is once again moving closer to a larger conflict. And that creates anxiety. Not just about war, but about what comes with it. Then, there is something even deeper. Trust. Or more accurately, the loss of it. People are not just questioning decisions anymore. They are starting to question the system itself. They are questioning whether the system still represents them, whether their voice still matters, whether the institutions they once relied on are still working the way they should. And when trust starts to erode, it doesn't collapse all at once. It fades, slowly, until one day, people stop believing in it entirely. But for most people, this isn't about geopolitics. It's not about strategy. It's about something much simpler. Daily life. gas prices are rising, and not in a way that feels distant or abstract, but in a way people notice immediately. Every time they go to the station, every time they check their expenses, every time they try to plan their month. And here's part people often underestimate. When fuel becomes more expensive, everything becomes more expensive. Transportation costs go up, which affects supply chains, which affect food prices, which affect basic living costs. And suddenly, it's not just about gas anymore. This is about the entire cost of living. At the same time, incomes don't rise at the same pace. So, people start adjusting, cutting back on spending, delaying plans, working more hours. But even then, it starts to feel it's not enough. And when people feel like they are working harder just to stay in the same place, something changes psychologically. Frustration becomes constant. And once that feeling spreads across millions of people, it doesn't stay invisible. Now, combine everything. Global tension, loss of trust, economic pressure, all happening at the same time. And then, something triggers it. Maybe it's a policy, maybe it's an incident, maybe it's just the accumulation reaching its limit. And suddenly, people don't just talk anymore. They show up. They gather. They march. Not because they all agree on everything, but because they all feel the same thing. Something isn't working, and that shared feeling is more powerful than agreement. To be clear, most of these protests are peaceful. People walking through the streets, holding signs, expressing their views, but not all of them. In some areas, tensions have already started to rise. Clashes with authorities, arrests, crowd control measures. And this is where things become unpredictable, because movements like this don't stay static. They evolve, and when emotions are already high, it doesn't take much for things to escalate. History shows something interesting. Large-scale protests like this rarely happen during stable periods. They don't happen when everything is functioning smoothly. They tend to appear right before major shifts, political shifts, economic shifts, social shifts, and not all of those shifts are negative, but they are almost always destructive. Because when a large number of people start pushing in the same direction, something eventually moves. And this is where it becomes even more important. Because this isn't happening in just any country. This is happening in one of the most powerful countries in the world. A country that plays a central role in the global system, economically, militarily, politically, which creates a paradox. Because the most powerful country in the world is now facing one of its biggest challenges, not from outside, but from within. And that matters. Because power is not just about military strength or economic size, it's also about stability. And when internal stability starts to weaken, even slightly, the effect can spread outward. This is why the world is paying attention, not just to the protests themselves, but to what they represent. Allies are watching because stability is matter for cooperation. Rivals are watching because instability creates opportunity. Markets are watching because uncertainty affects decisions. Because when something shifts inside the system this large, it doesn't stay contained. It creates ripple effects across regions, across industries, across entire economies. Right now, this is still developing, but there are a few possible directions. If things calm down, this may pass as a major moment, but not a turning point. But if it continues, things could escalate. Protests could grow larger, tensions could increase, responses could become more aggressive. And once that cycle starts, it becomes harder to control. Because at that point, it's no longer just about the original issues. It becomes about momentum. And momentum can carry movement much further than expected. What we are seeing right now might just be the beginning. Not necessarily of chaos, but of change. And change, especially at this scale, is never simple. It's unpredictable, it's uncomfortable, and sometimes it reshapes everything. So, this is not just about the protest. It's not just about politics. And it's not just about one country. It's about pressure. It's about trust. It's about how systems respond. When millions of people decide they've had enough. Because the real question isn't just about why are the people protesting? The real question is what happens next when that many people refuse to stay silent? Okay, that's for today's videos. See you on the next videos. Thank you. Bye bye.